Went to Sweden many times. We had good connections with Norway. And, you know, of the different trips we took, we even had our president who was so, Eisenhower, the brother of Glenn, General Eisenhower. He was so impressed with the Swedes, the Swedish girls, that he decided he'd go to Sweden. And I knew all about this, so I made arrangements that the girls would meet him at the air station with a bicycle, and they had a wonderful time with him. And so the president was over there riding a bicycle with the Swedish women.
Did you know the president?
Oh yeah, Eisenhower.
How did you know him so well?
Well, I remember he was a president at Penn State.
Mm. And
he was so impressed when they came over, the men and women, the second time, because the Swedish people, with my help, of course, they had a huge birthday cake with Swedish and American and Penn State flags. And they brought it, when they made their entrance, they walked in with this cake because it was the 100th anniversary of Penn State. And they stopped and they sang the Penn State alma mater. They had a guy that could play the accordion. It was fabulous because never does anybody do a thing like that. To come into the birthday cake to celebrate Penn State's anniversary and sing the alma mater. Of course, I had sent them the music and all that sort of stuff. That was a big event, and it impressed the president so much because he got involved in the final goodbye where we gave them jackets and beautiful things to wear.
Mm-hmm.
The Finns also made a tremendous impression, probably as much as the Swedes, because the Finnish people, there's something else. It's hard to explain. They lost half of their male population in the war with the Russians, but they didn't give up. They fought till the last man was dead. That, I think of all the teams I brought over, the Finns had the same kind of character as the Americans, and I think they liked it. The Swedes were great too. The Russians were also great. But the Finns were the ones that Penn State liked more than any other nation. We brought over the Bulgarians, the Hungarians. Hungarians was so controlled by Russian spies that they couldn't even talk to us. They wouldn't even allow us to talk to them. We had to meet and all that, and the music, and it was just wonderful. But they weren't like the other teams. They were very careful because they had a Russian guide with them, and I think the Hungarians gave the Russians more trouble fighting and so forth than any other nations, and they were afraid of the Hungarians rising up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go, we had Yugoslavs here too. They didn't bother Yugoslavs because the Yugoslavs are people that'll fight to the dead end. And so, boy, they didn't take anything from the Russians. We have all the trips with Russian guides with us and so forth, and then meeting in the hotel in the evening after the thing was over. There was a nice feeling between Russia and the United States. By the Russian guide, you could see they were ready to tell jokes and just they want to know about us. And we had to meet with the Russians in Riga, Latvia. And we had an all-night train ride to get there. When we got there, the people from Riga were, and the town looked exactly like it was before the war. No improvements. We had a manager that lived there in the early days. He says everything was the same. No, they didn't want to improve their place one bit. All right, we had a meet. They didn't show up, not one person, but there was one Russian. So here we have a big stadium with one Russian in the audience because the Latvian people just didn't support them in anything that was possible. Now here's a meet with Russia. Nobody there. Yeah, let's see. We went to Bulgaria. Bulgaria is definitely Russian. We got to the station. They wouldn't let us in. We had to wait. They wanted $80 per person. And we just sat in the place there, waited until they would make up their mind and let us in. I mean, they were always pulling that stuff. And when we had them here in the United States, the night before the meet, they said they were unhappy with the food. They wanted more money. You see, we didn't give any money except expenses. They wanted more money in addition, and otherwise they wouldn't compete. So we called the State Department, told the Romanian man, or ambassador,
Yeah.
what was happening. He just came right up, drove all night, and got to talk to these guys. Don't you dare do this sort of thing. And they changed their minds quickly. And the next day, oh, everything is super. The meals are good. We're so happy with you because of this ambassador came in. That was one bad meet.
Tell us about the story. Was it the Munich Olympics where the Israelis were shot, or you?
Yeah, I visited. I was not involved in that. I was not coach or manager in that one, but I did pay my own way over, and I was visiting the American team, and then there was lots of shots right next to us because we had the Israelis next to us, and I think they killed 3 people, and then they ran away, and when they got to the airport, the Germans marksmen in a distance away shot them all from a long distance away. And none of them ever returned.
And did you help some Hungarians or some people defect to the U.S.? Didn't they have?
That was in 76.
Oh, in Montreal.
I was the coach, and the news was that we were going to send all along here. We whispered, and sure enough, as we got near, the Russians were in a separate area. We couldn't even visit them. We'd like to talk. We couldn't. The Hungarians were also separately, they controlled by the Russians. But we got the news that we were all going to do our part to hide these guys. Well, as the Olympic Games came to a close, we had X number of guys in our house apartment, hiding under beds and all that sort of thing. The Russians never made any effort to look for them at all. And then they sent a whole plane load of Hungarians gymnasts and swimmers, all the sports. Sports Illustrated sent a plane over, took them all back to New York City. Now, who's going to pay for this now? So they agreed to give exhibitions throughout the country and end up in Los Angeles.
Huh.
And they did that to pay the way. And when they got to Los Angeles, there were a couple of gymnasts on it. Now they liked Los Angeles so well that they wanted to stay there. So I missed out on a couple of good gymnasts. Yeah. That. But the Hungarians, they're probably the smartest people around. They're brilliant.